Hi, everybody. This is day 1332, and no sign of life. No sign of life, nothing. Not one little bit. And I hear that there's reports that England, I should say Great Britain, is also asking that same question about their princess, Kate Middleton. Where is she? There's no sign of life since Christmas. And, they want to know. They want to know. And they're getting these false reports, narratives, uh, skewed narratives. And, this shows you a pattern within our agencies worldwide and organizations. They use the same techniques, the same standard operating procedures. And in Richard's case, it's no different. They absolutely tried to control the narrative. They manipulated him and tried to manipulate us. Absolutely. And we just had a greater faith than in our agencies and in our government. And of course we did. Obviously, we would have a greater faith than that in our very failed, very botched, very corrupt agencies. Um, and not in, well, maybe totally. No, I don't know. Because I know there's a lot of really good people that are in these agencies, but the agency itself and the HRC, Human Resources, who appoints, who's leading, I think that's the problem. Who gets these positions? Because I will tell you in our son's case, and let me go on um, what we have discovered uh, throughout this whole thing. Because if you have any questions, I really want to answer them. Okay, and there I am. Okay, so that was easy today. Thank you, Anicia, for coming on. Thank you so much. And I'm coming on just a little bit earlier. So, in our son's case, what has been very clear is all of the family connections of those that are in key positions in our agencies, in our military. In those positions, it's like, are you going to get a star general for your performance, or it's because who your daddy is, who your cousin is, what kind of group you're affiliated, what kind of politics you have? you know, because it seems that the latter is the litmus test. It's who you know, um, yeah, made a deal with or whatever, because they are all related. It is just stunning when you put together the big charts that we have, and even add pictures, because we're adding pictures now of the charts of all these people, and they're related. They're related somehow, some way, and they know each other. They have all this history behind, in their you know religious organization, or they just have history. And so, that is really concerning because, for example, Jesus, known as Eddie Nieto Jr., he's from that area. He is totally connected and totally related to different people and has connections with um, very important people. And here he is, the supervisory director, special agent in charge of the FBI there in El Paso. That is just so dirty. That's so dirty that clearly, obviously, and it doesn't stop there. There's all the different connections. So that is, you know, describes the answer of how they could do this, because one of the repeated questions that we received, Team Fire and Richard Halliday received, when we would say, look, this is a setup, this is a frame. Richard was absolutely abducted and murdered. There's no other explanation for all the irregularities, for all the circumstantial evidence, for all the hard evidence that we have. There's just no, and this is early on. Early on, we could see through the evidence that we were getting, and also the us attention, right? Clearly, there were agents in there. Clearly, there were informants that were, sent to, be our friends and care for the soldier, but weren't, but were paid informants and agents to control the narrative and to know what we were finding out, to literally be spies. And fortunately, they didn't have to be that big of spies. I mean, I'm sure they, um, because we were so transparent in everything that we were doing and saying. And so they really couldn't, what were they going to tell the public? They couldn't really tell the public anything behind the scenes because we were telling the public everything we were doing behind the scenes. So that's been very, very clear in these 3.5 years that this that how they got away with orchestrating the Walmart mass shooting, killing people, absolutely killing 23 people, injuring 20. I've got the numbers right, and I'm even knowing all the different people because they're very interesting also. Um, when once you start looking into who the victims are, and their backgrounds and who their families are, and putting it all together, clearly there was something more to the Walmart mass shooting than Patrick Crusius being, like, oh, I'm so racist. I'm going to do this manifesto, but oh yeah, when I release it the same day that I'm doing the shooting, I'll go from Republican to, I'll go from Democrat to Republican. I'll change my party name. I'll change my party name the day that I'm shooting everyone up and releasing my manifesto. I mean, it's just the most insane narrative, and it was really badly done by the organizers of this. Number one, Patrick is not mentally fit to even do something like that. He is severely has a severe mental health condition, and we received, and I know there's a broad spectrum with autism, but don't forget that the federal judge said he has a severe, not, a light, not mediocre, something that you can manage, a manageable mental health condition. No, he has a severe mental health condition. And when you look at his responses, he even denies being a racist. When you look at the picture that they leaked out, they selectively leak, they do. And they selectively leak, and we know that. And there's no shells in the background. And clearly, Memo Garcia was shot outside in front of the Walmart. And there was a shooting outside because we have it by many witnesses. So, and of course, as you walk at the front door of the Walmart, that's where Alexander Gerhard Hoffman wrote was shot also, brutally shot, and the scene was brutal, right? And so that comes to what weapons were used. What weapons were used? The weapons. We know through witness testimony from all the irregularities, the hard evidence, the condition of Patrick Crusius, We're not going to go with the narrative. We're not even going to entertain the narrative that Ernest Christopher Grant, an unreliable source, because he is a criminal. He is a total criminal. Um, and Donna Siffer, too, when her connections are beyond Ernest Christopher Grant. She has other connections that uh, create conflicts of interest that cannot be ignored, that make her an unreliable source. And the same thing with the cop. The cop, I can't say the name so well, but you can, it's all out there. And he also has conflicts of interest that cannot be ignored. And so the average person that's reading the newspaper doesn't do background checks to these so called witnesses and so called heroes and things like that. But the Secret Service does. And, when your son has been abducted and murdered, then you do it too. You want to find out, okay, he solving the Walmart mass shooting case will find our son. We'll find out what happened to our son. And so you look into it, because clearly, if we solve the Walmart mass shooting, we will know exactly what happened to Richard and where he is. Where he is, absolutely. Um, and it gets pretty complicated how that came to be. But we keep telling everyone because we're very transparent. 3905 Bliss Avenue, 3905 Bliss Avenue. Danae Katzen, Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, Felix Valenzuela, Mario Raskin Ortiz, who is the medical chief medical examiner, with and then connected, and then you get Angela Kucherga. Angela Kucherga, she's a huge player in all this. Okay, along with the breaches on Fort Bliss, and who were in charge of the breaches of Fort Bliss. Who were those in charge? And that is Thomas Kane. Thomas Kane, and of course Major General Clem Coward, and of course um, uh, Major General and now Lieutenant General Patrick Matlock, and who else? A Command Sergeant Major Jake Jakovitz, big player in all of this, and also Ann Ogle, CYS, a big player in the breaches of Fort Bliss, the security breaches. And there's more. There's more individuals that you know are suspect, are being reported through the intelligence, because of the audit. They do audits every year, but this was a special audit in 2019 of weapons and equipment and ammunition from Fort Bliss. And how would that go? Really, how would that go? So we looked into that because clearly Glendon Oakley Jr. lost his life in April of 2020. He didn't lose it for nothing. Something happened to him, because I'm totally convinced of this, because it's just not a coincidence. Something happened because of his testimony. I think that the orchestrators of the Walmart mass shooting did not want him to testify about the team of law enforcement with the M4s going through the mall. Okay, he called them mall cops. Um, clearly, you know, clearly in uniform, right? So there's supposed to be security. And the odd thing about Walmart, the Walmart mass shooting, is that the response was very delayed. So whoever Glendon Oakley Jr. saw was not a response to the 911 calls. Okay. Um, that's also clear. And so, the overwhelming evidence, the false narrative perpetrated by an unreliable source again, right? It seems like the media is always using these unreliable sources. They can't get someone that has integrity, right? They can't get someone to be a witness that has integrity. Um, Christopher Grant is just not the man. He is a plant. He's an agent. He's an agent. He's a spy. He's a informant. Whatever. He is not just some guy that was getting some fruit in Walmart and decided to throw soda bottles at at the shooter and then say, "Oh, I was trying to divert attention and this and that," and then gets shot in the gut twice, and is able to walk around, go to the automotive department and get patched up there or whatever, and then move outside into a truck and get into a truck and all that. No. So do I believe he was shot? Um, I will say, okay, because the hospital had to treat him, right? Could the hospitals lie to the people in mass? Oh no, not COVID hospitals. I mean, especially this hospital, because this hospital also has a conflict of interest in our estimations. But could they lie? But let's just say no. Let's say he was shot, but he was not shot by AK-47. He was not shot by an M4 brown tip bullet, because he would never be able to take those two shots and be able to walk around like that unless he was just like on some kind of drugs or whatever. I don't know. I've been talking to medical people. So, um, yeah, that's just impossible, um, for a normal person. Okay, and he's not a big person. He's not a fat person. And why do I say that? Because most warriors, this is common knowledge, most warriors would gain weight, right? Because that extra fat would protect them from cuts, from getting beaten up or whatever. So they would always have like a gut on them. And Ernest Christopher Grant doesn't. He's slim. So it is clear that something is not right, and his testimony is not believable. But that's not the case with Glendon Oakley Jr. He is someone with integrity, right? He is clearly someone with integrity. And they tried to do to him what they did to Richard with this AWOL and DWI and everything. And you could see it all happening in front of your eyes on the camera less than 24 hours later, what they were doing to him. So, and now we have not only video footage of Glendon Oakley Jr. and, clearly going from, um, feeling relaxed, that he can tell the world what happened truthfully, to being very nervous, very, a psyop, going, crying, right? Going to cry. It kind of reminds me of the captain in Richard's case. It kind of reminds me of the paralegal that we went to the house, and it's just like they're so nervous. And Command Sergeant Major Jakovitz, so nervous, so really, really nervous. So, and of course, Brigadier General David Stewart. You, it's so hard to explain uh, the change the shock of the change, to see someone warp from a man of integrity to just a weakling, just a beaten down person, you know. And I'm sure his family was probably like threatened or whatever, because they've threatened us, they've harassed us, they've done things you just couldn't even believe it. You couldn't even believe it. And that in itself is evidence that that Richard was abducted and murdered. Because if Richard was just out there somewhere, they wouldn't care. They wouldn't care. They wouldn't. Uh, they wouldn't keep the open records from us. That we received this this Ken K9 traffic stop in a parking lot at midnight, to frame a whistleblower, to frame a distinguished honor graduate, to make him look bad, to make, him an unreliable source. That's what the purpose of it was, um, to tarnish his character, right? And then they used it to tarnish his character even more, even after he was exonerated on July 9th of 2020. They used it in their PAO, in their spreading of false information of Richard, the missing soldier. Not only that, but that he was designated the Vanessa Guillen first absent soldier, and they still did not show him any respect. They did not show the family any respect. You have the liaison, Josh, right? You have liaison Josh Lyons, being caught being very, very disrespectful, and trying to sabotage the search and the investigation, of Richard Halliday. And that is, and then you find out he's Tradoc. He's Tradoc. Um, yeah, it just gets so bizarre over and over again. Um, so, once once this whole book comes together, it's, uh, it's, I think it's going to blow so many people's minds, because we did get this footage, this video footage, and Richard looks outstanding. He looks beautiful. He absolutely looks so beautiful. So what that means is that it was a frame. It was a setup. There's no doubt whatsoever that the whole thing was a frame, that it was a setup. And of course, that's why Alma Trejo could not go along with it, because she has political aspirations. So there's no way that she could go along with it, when he looks so good. So good. And full of integrity, full of courage, just very respectful, um, f- fully in control of himself, uh, passing all the tests. Clearly he was just outstanding, absolutely outstanding. So, what else does this say? This also says that he had to be whistleblowing on something so severe that they would go to this level to, frame him at midnight with a canine cop that was akin to Belen Rocha, um, and you know, for a in a parking lot, right? So let's look at what we think. Just crazy, um, because his. But I want to go back to this audit, because absolutely he knew something. He knew that they were um, engaged in criminal activity because he told us, he said it was so bad. It's so bad, Mom. It's so bad. I do not want to stay in the military. So let's see uh, these M4s that Glendon Oakley Jr. Commented on. They are the United States military choice. It's called the M4 carbine, and they are standard issue weapon for the infantry units in the United States Army. Absolutely, M4 carbine. And the brown tip bullets, also known as the armor piercing ammunition. Um, they are absolutely military ammunition. Brown tip bullets typically have a steel or tungsten core. That's why they can pierce armor. And, you know, there might be some restrictions on them, but they're not registered. For the most part, they're not registered. So they can be very easily stolen. And we have been told that brown tip bullets were found at the Walmart mass shooting. This is a military ammunition. You cannot just get them, okay? So they are with the M4, and they are compatible with the M4. They, you know, so when you combine those two, the M4 rifles with the brown tip bullets, they really provide soldiers with outstanding capabilities, because those brown tip bullets have 71 grains in them. They go very fast. They go very fast. They're very strong. They're very fast. And when a bullet is fast, it is more accurate. And with the M4s, because of the short barrel, it makes them really good for urban warfare because of their maneuverability. And their shots can be very accurate. Um, this the U.S. Army, there at Fort Bliss and all over, they regularly do training with this weapon, right? And they have to then conduct regular inventory and audits on these weapons, proper storage, and the allocation of these weapons and ammunition. Now, we know for a fact that Fort Bliss has not followed standard operating procedure. That the barracks, were flush with weapons. We know they were going through an audit. We know that for a fact by Brigadier General David Stewart, by Dirty Agent Marlon Soto, and even traitor Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe. We know that they were absolutely worried about the weapons. The ATF, alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and explosives. But the ATF, they don't just show up. They were at the meetings, okay? They were at the meeting, that big meeting with the 15 plus agencies. They were there. So why were they there? Because weapons were a big deal, okay? Arms trafficking absolutely is part of this whole thing, okay? There's not a doubt in my mind that arms trafficking, because of everything that we've been told, is part of this. And, you know, so if Richard is going to be framed in a parking lot when he is totally with it, beautiful, outstanding, respectful, passing everything with flying colors, then he was reporting on something that was very serious. more so than a CPS complaint. Okay, unless the CPS complaints, because we know, I think it's like three of them. Um, because, like if Boleyn admits to two of them, then there must have been more. Okay, okay, let's just say it, because she's just an unreliable source, and yeah, if she admits to two, there must have been more. Okay, so, and it must have been really bad. Um, but what's really, really important here is that the reports that there were absolutely breaches in the security on Fort Bliss. And we know for a fact that there were breaches, that the SOPs were not being followed, that they were not being followed at all. And in Richard's case, the regulations, the standard operating procedures were not followed at all. So it is safe to say that in securing our weapons, our equipment, our ammunition, that they were also in violation of standard operating procedures. And these M4 carbines with brown tip bullets absolutely, absolutely, possibly, seemingly, possibly could have been part of the Walmart mass shooting that killed 23 people and injured 22. Because think about it, they do not want this case to move forward. They took down Yvonne Rosales to keep this case from moving forward. They want to leave it in pieces. They want to leave it in pieces so that the people will forget, that the people will change, because even the people change. Look at the police chief. He has passed away. So they want things to change. They want time to go on so that they can get away with what they did. And it is not crazy, not unreasonable to suspect that M4 weapons and brown tip bullets from the armory on Fort Bliss were involved in the El Paso Walmart mass shooting that occurred on August 3rd, 2019. Okay? Um, Not crazy at all, because there were so many breaches in the security on every level, and the leadership was just that bad. They need to be stripped. They need to be stripped of their stars. It's just that bad. So also, another report from intelligence that we're getting is that these weapons were manipulated, that a gunsmith manipulated these weapons. And when we looked them up, a gunsmith can easily get rid of the serial numbers on these weapons. So if you want to smuggle the weapons and you have a gunsmith, okay, that gunsmith comes in very, very handy to erase the serial numbers on the weapons. So and we have reports of who that gunsmith was, and we haven't really named him. I can tell you it was a him. It was a him, and so it is definitely, that is another reason why it is not insane. It's not unreasonable. It's not just when you have the leadership as bad as it is on every front, and the standard operating procedures being broken on every front, then of course they're not going to. I mean, it's reasonable to say that they also broke standard operating procedures when it came to securing our weapons, ammunition, and equipment. So, and the lack of maintenance on them, inadequate controls on who's taking them out and whatever. I mean, it's just no, they were in breach. It is not unreasonable to say that And this is very, very dangerous for the community and for our country, because if these weapons are going over to Juarez, and I believe that they are, because I believe that the cartel is involved in this whole thing, because the cartel, we know from um, Attorney General Ken Paxton, that they are controlling the border, that the cartel control the border. And if uh, AG Paxton is going to openly say something like that, then he knows even more. He knows even more, and it's absolutely true. So this is, you know, just a huge breaking news. But to say, and I don't think I'm accusing it. I'm just saying the facts, that there was absolutely unauthorized access possibility at Fort Bliss Armory, because there was unauthorized access in the CID. We know that for a fact. Um, were there stolen weapons? Well, you know, uh, we have stolen goods everywhere, everywhere. So, of course, they're just so sloppy. And what does that mean? That the leadership has to be approving it, which means they're in on it. Okay. Um, so, this whole origins, I know, it's so sad. So very sad. Yeah. I'll have to look at that. Thank you, Sarah, for coming on and saying that. And well, what's really sad to me is that a group of people with very high positions, or positions where we trust them, they're entrusted with our country, they're entrusted with our military, with our soldiers, got together and organized using Patrick Crucius. Okay, he's part of it, but they used him to murder 23 people, 20 injured, for political reasons, for uh, to enrich themselves, to keep control of the people in El Paso. It's kind of like a master, where the slaves get a little taste of freedom and are starting to want freedom, and the master just wants to whip them into shape. And this is, I believe, to me, from what I'm looking at, that's what this looks like. It looked like, for once, the people of El Paso in 2017, 2018, 2019 felt like they didn't really need their masters, their government, that they could do just fine and work real hard and do just fine and enjoy life, um, and and that the organizers um, wanted to keep their gravy train of Fort Bliss going. The war machine was coming to an end. They wanted to keep it going. They want to keep war going. That's why I think this whole Ukraine thing is all for the contracts and for the war monies. The money, war can be very, very profitable. Um, yeah, it's, what, and I think as time goes by, we'll see it, just like Afghanistan. What did we do there? Trillions and trillions of dollars in gravy train. That's what happened. And many, many lives lost. And the people that profit off of it do not care about the lives lost. And so those 23 people that we care about, that we are still crying over, because how could they do this uh, in a community? Um, it's just, and then blame it and try to divide a people, right? Try to make it even worse than what it is by putting this white supremacist label on it, which clearly it wasn't. Clearly it was not. Um, and they don't even want to tell you who died. They don't want to tell you, oh, this German, uh, Alexander Gerhard Hofmann, um, was gunned down right at the entrance of the Walmart. You know, uh, it was clearly orchestrated, and a false narrative was quickly put onto it, and it was brought to us by our law enforcement leadership. So the law enforcement leadership, gave us a false narrative. And so when Richard went missing, when he was abducted and he was murdered, and we were like, where's our son? What's going on? Um, that the narrative, the smear campaign that they put on Richard, like from this um, Ken K9 traffic stop in the middle of a parking lot at midnight, uh, that uh, narrative got twisted to the law enforcement community. The rest of the community, okay, they got it too a little bit, but it was really directed to those who would be responsible in searching for him and also prosecuting his case. So they twisted um, to control even the law enforcement agencies. And so that's good news, because that means that we have a lot of good people in our law enforcement communities. But the bad news is that CID, Dirty Agent Marlon Soto, and Tavita Nusa, and of course the leadership there, Clem Coward and Matlock, were in on it. Were absolutely in on it. Sean Bernabe in on it, because they perpetuated the smear narrative on Richard, a distinguished honor graduate for both basic training and advanced individual training. I was begging them to say that. It was like, why don't you say that in your PAO? Why don't you tell everyone that he was a distinguished honor graduate, number one for basic training in AIT? Why don't you tell? Because, it's true. It's true. And also, um, that would motivate. That's a great motivator for people to look for him. So yeah, um, but they never did. They never did. They perpetuated this false narrative of this Ken K9 traffic stop in the middle of a parking lot at midnight. That was their narrative, and Richard just shone too bright. He was just too bright and just had too much integrity, and of course the whistleblowing, and so he did really, really well. And now we have the video, and it clearly shows that the narrative was false. And so we'll see where this goes next, because it's very, very important. But there's no doubt in my mind that that was a retaliation for what he knew, because he wanted to be CID, right? He wanted to be CID. He knew Marlon Soto. He knew DES Thomas Kane. He knew Tavita Nusa, and therefore he knew what they were up to, that they were up to no good, and he was reporting it. I mean, that's clearly, now that's my theory, because of all of the evidence that we have. But clearly, that could be cleared up too. And where's Park University, right? This is absolutely an emergency, and they have denied us that access. And I think that speaks volumes also. That also speaks volumes. So nobody should deny us access to who the DES is, to Park University Richard's academic records. This is absolutely an emergency, and those are, um, by not giving those to us, they're obstructing justice and obstructing the search and the investigation into our son, Richard Halliday. So, thank you so much, and we'll be talking about this audit and about the manipulation of these weapons, and uh, and clearly the breaches in the armory, uh, and what we know about the armory right now, uh, the laws, I should say, the violations that have occurred with Major General Eisenhower on the armory right now. It has happened. So thank you so much. God bless you. Please, we did get some traction, even with the shadow banning on the little TikTok, and so please share. That is what will make this move faster and get us answers faster, is you sharing. That's how much power you have with that little share button. It is just that powerful. So thank you so much. God bless you. Please like, please comment, and we love you. Bye bye, everybody.